Welcome back to another Valley Sports Plug Phoenix Suns recap for December 15th through December 27th, 2022. I'm Chris Patrick. With me, as always, my man Michael Benjamin, here to break it all down for you. So let's get right into it. In the last 2 weeks, the Suns would go 4-3, bringing their record on the season to 20-15. I know probably not where a lot of Suns fans thought we would be sitting at this point in the season, and I think I said that last time. So hopefully this doesn't become a familiar tone, but let's take a look at how those last 7 games broke down for the Phoenix Suns. Starting out against the Clippers in Los Angeles, the Suns would win that game 111-95. Then it would be back at home taking on the Pelicans, where they would snag the win and get revenge 118-114. The Phoenix Suns would then take on the Los Angeles Lakers still at home and win that game 130-104. Next, it would be against the Washington Wizards, where they would lose 110-113 in a nail-biter. Last game at home against the Grizzlies, the Suns would lose again 100-125. This wasn't the last of their skid. They would lose 3 straight. Next game in Denver, 125-128, another nail-biter. You really hate to see them losing these close ones. And lastly, we got our revenge against the Grizzlies, 125-108 in Memphis, getting a good win with no Devin Booker. And Chris Paul, I think we get news that he got maybe a little bit banged up in that game. So want to pass it over to Mike for a bit more of a deep dive and look at these last 7.
We were almost on the same trajectory as all of these recaps, right? Highs, then some lows. Then we were looking to have another high this time. And unfortunately, this recap itself was completely bipolar. I mean, we could start off with the first game on December 15th against the Clippers. We ended a 5-game skid, handled business against the Clippers, who were already shorthanded. I mean, John Wall was basically their only starters. They were missing the top 3 scorers and 4 of their starters. Booker came back from a 2-game absence from his hamstring, and Ayton was out in that game with the ankle. Maybe that helped with some camaraderie going into the next game against the Pelicans, where Devin Booker was absolutely on fire. 58.6 rebounds, 5 assists. He was 21 of 35 from the field. They asked him after the game, how he was feeling, and he said he realized that he had the hot hand, so they continued to go to him. It was the second 50-point performance of the year so far, and he scored 25 points in a row at one point in that game. Suns were down big early. I mean, we had lost 2 to the Pelicans in our last recap, back-to-back, and the Suns had missed 13 threes in a row at one point in the first half, and they were down 83-59 midway through the third quarter. And then they went on a huge run, 25-6. Josh Okogie had some huge offensive rebounds in that game, and Chris Paul hit a dagger 3 with 1 minute, 4 seconds left remaining. But the Pelicans, they're starting to become a pain in our butt, right? Zion had 30, McCollum had 27. Huge come-from-behind victory, and got some momentum that this team really needed. Come out the next time, just mollywop the Lakers like we've done plenty of times. The Suns shot 50%. They made 23s, and they out-rebounded the Lakers 51-36. With only 8 turnovers. Of course, our good old friend Pat Bev has to do something once again, and he makes a gesture of too small after he hit kind of a hook shot over Chris Paul when they were getting blown out. You'd love to see it. It's just something that you're always going to get from Pat Bev. He's truly a character. But that next day, on December 20th, Matt Ishbia, who's the CEO of United Wholesale Mortgage, agreed to purchase the Phoenix Suns for a whopping total of $4 billion. This also included the Phoenix Mercury. But that good news didn't roll into the game that night against the Washington Wizards, who we lost to by 3 points. The Wizards snapped a 10-game losing streak in that game. A tough thing to see in that game, though, was the Suns came back from down 17, took a 10-point lead midway through the fourth, and then collapsed. Chris Paul didn't score until midway through the third quarter. You just can't have it when we have guys out. And Bridges only had 10 points. And, of course, this is when we got the infamous new clip, which seems to be coming out every other week, it seems like, where DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams were fighting and had a disagreement on the sideline. I'd still love to know what those guys were talking about, but when you're going through a slump, those are the kind of things that you seem to see. Then we had some time off, and the Grizzlies come to town. They punched us in the mouth early, and we couldn't come back at all. I mean, Brandon Clark had a big game off the bench, 24 and 10 rebounds. The Grizzlies scored the first 8 points, led 15-4 going into the first timeout. I think Monty Williams came out. He said, "We got to get back chasing something, and right now I feel like the prey." I don't like that feeling. I told our guys the same thing. We got to get our edge back right from the jump. Big game on Christmas Day. Jokic trying to go for a third straight MVP, just absolutely jumps off the box score. Those are NBA 2K numbers, 41 points, 15 rebounds, and 15 assists. Booker tried to come back, only lasted 4 minutes, and the groin went down for him again. The Suns fell apart at the end when they had opportunities. And we had an opportunity to win in regulation, but Mikal Bridges has an offensive foul running into a Nuggets player. Then, of course, the freaking dunk of the year so far, Aaron Gordon basically baptizing Landry Shamet from way outside of the key. But Shamet did have 31 points again, so give him his props where you see it. But then we had an opportunity to tie the game in overtime, and we throw the ball away. Tonight, we get back on the right side of the ship with a huge win against the Grizzlies in Memphis, where all of our starters scored in double digits, and no one from the starting unit, except for Ayton, played over 25 minutes. Ayton only played 27. So we overcame a furious run by basically just Ja Morant in that third quarter, where they cut it to 6. Good aggressive defense. Memphis's poor shooting didn't help them, but we also controlled the boards 47-40. And Washington Jr. stepped up when Chris Paul went out, which has been just what we've seen this past couple of weeks and to start this season with this team dealing with all the injuries. But I need to know, what were some of the statistics we were seeing these past 2 weeks?
Yeah, Mike, let's get into that right now. In the last game against the Grizzlies, though, I did want to highlight that the Suns had 8 players in double-digit scoring, and the difference really was that second quarter where the Suns scored 7 of 10 three-point attempts. They were really letting it rain out there tonight. But over the last 2-week stretch as a whole, looking at some player stats at a high level, we have DeAndre Ayton, 21.2 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 block. He would play in 5 of the last 7. Chris Paul played in all 7. We were joking that that was maybe the last guy we expected to be the Iron Man of the stretch, but he would have 16.3 points and 9.3 assists. Mikal Bridges, 14.3 points and 2.7 rebounds. He's still the Iron Man. He hasn't missed a game. He's staying healthy, and I sure hope so, because what he brings on defense is valuable. I just really think I wanted to see him adding more value scoring wise. He's capable of being a 20-point a game type of guy. So I hope he can step into that as this develops. But I feel like it's been tough with a lot of different rotations, guys coming in and out, missing games. You're going to see ups and downs as people kind of try and find their chemistry, even having Dwayne Washington come in tonight and have a hell of a game. Also, looking at some support players from the last 2 weeks, we had Damian Lee, 9.6 points per game, 3.7 rebounds. You can basically rely on him to get you at least 2 3-pointers every game. Torrey Craig is another guy, 9 points and 5.6 rebounds. In that game against the Grizzlies, I really liked seeing him step up and play some hard defense. Still have faith in Monty Williams and these guys, but going to be interesting to see, some things to follow is these guys that we paying a lot of money and we rely on, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, are they going to stay healthy and be available for us as we head to the midseason mark and towards the All-Star game here in just a couple months?
I mean, that's been the story of this past 2 months, it seems like. I mean, Chris, literally just within the past 2 weeks, these are the injuries that we've been dealing with so far. Campaign's been out with the foot. Jock Landale missed some time with a concussion. Washington was out. He did come back today, had a huge game, but he missed some time. Same with Josh Okogie with the hip. Ayton missed some more games with the ankle injury. Booker had the hamstring and now the groin, and we don't know how long he's going to be out. It might be extended amount of time, to be honest with you. He's not even with the team. Shamet, after his 2 big games, it seemed like, and a good stretch over the past week and a half, he missed today's game with the Achilles injury. And obviously, Cam Johnson is still out. And now Chris Paul tonight, I don't know if it was a calf or his Achilles again, but it hobbled him and he couldn't finish that game. And it's hard to really get consistency when everything with the rotations is just completely scattered all over the place. Some of those guys that we've been talking about earlier to this season that we were trying to see that consistency from, DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, it's hard for them too, but also it goes back to what you're saying. They're starting to get paid the big boy bucks. We got to be able to rely on them to create their own shots and give us those really step up games when we need it from them. And unfortunately, in these losing streaks, we just haven't seen it from them. And we got to be honest, right? We can't just live in the moment of tonight, which was a really good win in Memphis. But basically, since the calendar switched to December, our defense has been really, really struggling. Our transition defense has been pretty bad. We've continued to have rebounding woes. It seems like our second line bigs just aren't matching up to the physicality and the true size of some of these bigger guys in the league right now. And then the mistakes down the stretch, having opportunities to get wins, which this team did last year, it's just not the same right now. I mean, we're only 3 losses away from having the same amount of losses from last year,
Right.
which, we talked about. You can't have a franchise record every season, but this team, all they're trying to do right now is hold the course and coast till we can get guys back and healthy and get this unit rolling as a full unit, hopefully within the next couple of months.
Mike, I think you wanted to introduce a little segment here in our Suns recaps. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I mean, obviously, we're looking at a 2-week span, so a lot of things can happen. I mean, this past week, we've seen some more guys get hurt. We've seen some huge performances and some guys step up off the bench. So we want to introduce the player of the recap from each of us, bringing a player from this Suns unit who really caught our eye from these past couple of games. And I want to start off with you, Chris. Who is your player of the recap?
Yeah, so I did grapple with this one a little bit. And so maybe it'll be my player of the recap with an asterisk. Like Mike said, we're looking at a 2-week span. We always talk about this being a vacuum when we do this and talking about these stats. So that's important perspective. But I think it's important to highlight his multiple 30-plus points games, 2 31-point games to be precise, against the Wizards and the Nuggets. And although losses, a good fight against the Nuggets, and honestly, not too bad of a fight against the Wizards either. Especially when your starter like Booker is out, you need these bench guys to step up and fill a bigger role. And in those games where he scored 31, he played 35 minutes and 39 minutes respectively. So also showing that he can be out there, although at the end of it, he missed the game against the Grizzlies. So we'll see how long that injury keeps him out. But maybe he won't be eligible next week for player of the recap. We'll have to see how he does and how he bounces back. But with my asterisks, I think it's also important to note some criticisms I've had about Landry Shamet, and just to remind the people what we have here in Landry Shamet. On the season, he is shooting 40.2% from the field goal, 38.8 from the 3-point line, and just 9.4 points per game. So not quite what you want to see from a guy that you're signed for 4 years and $42.5 million. Almost 20 million of that is guaranteed money. He's the 6th highest paid Suns player behind Jay Crowder, and that guy ain't even playing. I want to see who Mike's player of the recap is, though, before I give too much more away about what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, so Landry Shamet was definitely at the top of my list, but I was going in between 2 guys, and I think I landed on Chris Paul for this recap. 16.3 points, 9.3 assists, almost 4 rebounds, and about 1.5 steals. Shooting better from the field over the last 7, 46% from the field and 50% from 3. They've started to transition him to a little bit more off the ball, and he's been shooting pretty well in those spot up threes in the corners. And he's just been handling the offense and getting guys involved like we've seen from Chris Paul. So it was good to see a good stretch from him, based off of the struggles that he had to start the season and his injuries that forced him to miss extended amount of time to start. So I'm just praying, I'm crossing my hands, crossing my fingers that it wasn't too big of an injury tonight, and he'll be back into the fold because at this point, Chris, we need all the help that we can get with the amount of injuries that's going on with this team.
Yeah, man. The injury bug, it'll get everyone at a certain point, it seems. Every team that is. There's guys like Mikal Bridges who can somehow manage to stave off injury and stay healthy. Wish you could see that from Devin Booker. Maybe he can talk to Bridges and get the advice, but we'll have to see. Like I keep saying, a lot of basketball left. Some final thoughts I'd have just on the Suns, and as we get ready to head out here on this recap, still no word on Jay Crowder and what's going on there. It sounds like there was some trade talks going on, but the Suns were wanting a little more than what was being offered. It's being reported that they do want a starter in return. Jay Crowder is the 5th highest paid player on the Suns, and I'm sure there's another team where they're going to have to match salaries of a player of a certain caliber that's able to be something of value in return for him. So, Mike, what about you? You got anything else on the Suns in the last 2 weeks and going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is the new owner, Matt Ishbia, coming in and already making an impact. Sounds like he made a 100K donation to Bright Side Night, which is in conjunction with Bright Side of the Sun, to provide underprivileged kids in the Phoenix metro area tickets to the January 30th game versus the Raptors. And us here at Valley Sports Plug, we're not giving away 6,600 tickets, unfortunately, but we're going to be giving away 2 tickets to that game, Section 109, Row 11. Make sure you stay tuned to our next recap on January 11th. We'll have some more information, and stay tuned to our socials so you can get in on the action and get those free tickets, baby. Let's go.
You heard it, folks. You got to be following us to find out. So for Michael Benjamin, I am Chris Patrick. We will keep coming at you every 2 weeks with these Phoenix Suns recaps and so much more. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.